can tell me a little bit more about you, but my question mostly is about why are you doing this? I moved to Canada 11 years ago.
What was the experience like after years away?
So I went back to Burundi after 7 years. I don't tend to call myself a writer. I don't know why. Maybe I'm scared about that, but I call myself a words lover. I am a person who values honesty, who values kindness. When I wrote the 10 years, I had many feedback about that. I miss amateka Kirundi. You don't have to be a public figure. You don't have to be an influencer to be seen or heard. The most influential people in our lives are the people who are close to us, not the people that we see on the screen. Tell me a little bit more about you, but my question mostly is about why are you doing this?
It may be a long story.
Okay.
Back in 2020, I was given an opportunity to train on news writing and storytelling techniques here in Bujumbura to young people who aspire to become journalists. From Bujumbura to Ngozi and Gitega, that's when I saw that young people who graduate maybe from universities were struggling with their personal development. I said, what if I start something and be inviting people who have got some stories, mainly Burundians who are here in Burundi or even just across the world, so that they can just share with our viewers, mainly the people who have been to school, even those who are still at school, and get to know maybe what it takes to become a professional. Like if I'm a writer or if I'm a documentary filmmaker, what does it take to become that person? So it was just something that I saw from Bujumbura, Ngozi and Gitega. The people who have been invited here, journalists, interpreters, doctors, it's all about saying it takes this to become this person. If you want to become this person, you have to learn and you have to have a passion for it. You have to do it because you love it. You have to do it not because you want to get money out of it. So something like that. So that was the idea to start this thing. Yeah, in short. But also, it was a dream that I had even before because I was passionate about journalism and I wanted to be interviewing people, get to know more about the persons and having just to learn more about the people who are maybe doing something great to the community and things of the country.
Okay.
I'm Burundian and I was born in the southern part of Burundi.
Okay.
I was born
in Makamba?
Not Rumonge. Have you been there?
Yeah. It's very beautiful. I have been there, yes. And what did you study in university?
In university, I did English language and literature, but I graduated in business communication. But
so you switched? You switched?
It was there was a track because it was a track because we did English language and literature the first 2 years, and the last year we had to do something. Some went for translation. Others went for performing arts and I went for business communication. From my younger age, I was passionate about storytelling, crafting stories through visuals. I remember I started doing photography when I was in boarding school. I grew up doing that. Even today, I do stories. I craft stories. I do documentary films. I like to hear from the people. Yeah, that's it. That's my job, by the way. I'm a documentarian. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask if the podcast is like your full-time job or if you do anything else or you do also documentaries.
I do it. It's not my full-time, this one. This one is it's something I do on weekend, but otherwise, Monday up to Friday, I'm busy doing other things. I'm shooting videos in the countryside. Like these days, I'm doing documentary films on mpox and on coffee here in Burundi. How coffee came to Burundi. Things of the kind. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, I do documentary films. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I admire people who tell me that they had a dream when they were young. I didn't have that, but I'm like, yeah, you are. It's very interesting for me. Yeah. But thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's it.
I like to get to know the person that I'm going to speak with. So we'll get more comfortable. This is our first time. I don't know, maybe the other people, they know you. But for me, because this is our first time, I always like to, to have like an icebreaker.
That's it in short, Karen. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you. I actually work in human resources and I interview people. So that was the interviewer in me. You can go ahead and do your job now.
There are people who are watching this, and first and most would like to know more about Karel. Who are you for the first time? Imagine there's someone who just sees you for the first time. How would you introduce yourself?
That's such a loaded question. But my name is Karel Irakoze. I have a middle name. It's Melissa that I tend to forget. But yeah, my name is Karel Melissa Irakoze. I was born and raised in Burundi, in the south side of the city, in Bujumbura. I am a last born of a family of 6 children. I have 5 siblings. Why are you laughing?
The last born.
Yes. Are you also a last born?
Barafina.
No, you know what? I'm not your typical last born. I can promise you. Especially if I'm with my siblings, they'll be like, "Who is the last born here?" Yeah, but yeah, pretty sure they will say otherwise. But I am a last born. I do have both parents still alive, and I grew up in I would say, normal family. Having cousins over in the home. We always like more than 10 people in the house at the same time. It was a big and busy family, and I would say I am a words lover. I don't tend to call myself a writer. I don't know why. Maybe I'm scared about that, but I call myself a words lover. I love words since I was very young, and I am a person who values honesty, who values kindness, who values being intentional with your words when you're speaking. So that's why I write. I think I'm better at writing than speaking, because I know I can take time to write and be really very intentional when I'm writing. So if I text you and I text you a big message, like a long message, know that I was very intentional, and that's something I really love. But aside from that, I am also I work in human resources. I think in a nutshell, I hope this is enough for your viewers.
Yeah. How do you manage to use 3 languages, Kirundi, French, and English?
That one would be easy. I was born and raised in Burundi, so Kirundi is my mother language, my mother tongue. French is the official language in the country, so I studied in French most of my from kindergarten to high school. It was in French, and then Kirundi is my mother tongue, as I mentioned.
Yes.
So and when it comes to English, I moved to Canada 11 years ago. At first, it was very hard. I loved English from a very young age. I did lettres modernes in high school. The only reason I did that is because I didn't want to do scientifique.
Mm-hmm.
I hated math. It's not that I hated it. I didn't understand the point of it. And I think the way we study, the way our curriculum is set, you would study things and don't really understand what the value of it is. I was not bad in math. I didn't like it. And I had to run away from it. It's a long story, but basically I did lettres modernes. And but even if I was in high school, I remember that I used to listen to BBC. And not because I love listening to news, but just because I love English. I love words. And I also remember listening to a podcast that used to happen in Bonesha FM or CCIB that was called Imagine Burundi. And it was a podcast that was done by young Burundians. And I loved listening to their stories. They were speaking about how their week was. It was a podcast, I think. But then I moved to Canada, and I moved to Toronto, which is an English-speaking city. I had to adapt. It was very hard the first few years, I would say. But that I guess that's how I got to be able to write in French, English, and Kirundi.
That's interesting. And moving to Toronto, what was the experience by getting there? What did you see?
Oh, I saw a big city, very busy city, very very diverse as well. I think that was the first time I realized that I was Black. Because, in Burundi, we are all Black. If anything, I would say you are light skin, you are dark skin, but there's no such thing as Black and white. So being in school or maybe in class and seeing that you are sometimes the only Black person, maybe there are two people, I think that when I realized that I was Black. And it was interesting. It was very interesting. I realized my identity, that's why I was like, I'm actually Burundian. I'm African. I am a Black person. I am a Black woman. I saw diversity, which was beautiful. When you see different people who speak different languages in a bus, you will hear Chinese, you hear people speaking French sometimes, maybe a little bit. You will hear people speaking Wolof, different languages in one bus. I always tell people that Canada is like a mini heaven, because that's how it will be in heaven. I feel like there are so many languages, so many cultures coming together and living in harmony most of the time. So it was a new experience.
Wow, that's interesting. And I think you're going to talk about writing. But before we talk about career as a writer, when did you discover that you are probably a writer? Was it something that you saw when you were young, or was it a passion? How did you discover that? Or did you have a person who told you one day you are likely to become a writer in the future?
You know what? I think I realized that I love writing at a very young age. Nobody told me. I think it was, as I told you, I am a lastborn. So I don't know if in your experience, but lastborns are not most of the time asked about their opinions. They will just hear older siblings discuss about things. Maybe the parents discuss about things. You are never really asked about your opinion because you are the youngest. And I think writing for me was the way I would express myself from a very young age. I think I was maybe 11, 12. I had a journal where I would write about anything that was coming into my mind. I didn't really think I would be like a writer, but it was more like my safe haven for me. And but because we were like so many people in the house, I didn't have my own room, which means that even if I have a journal, anybody could have access to it. So I remember I would write and then I will tear everything down right after that. So nobody really saw me writing in my younger age. Maybe I told them later, but that was the way I communicated. That was the way I expressed myself at a very young age. But then growing up, most of my siblings went to study abroad. I remember when my siblings had like a birthday, I would write like a long post on Facebook and everybody would be like commenting. They were like, "Oh, you write so well. That was such beautiful, maybe poem or whatever." I was like, "Oh, that is the least I can do because they are not here." I didn't see it like a very like that. I am a writer actually, but that's how it developed. And I was very young at that point. I was like maybe 15 or 14. And I also wrote songs when I was like 13. I was 13 and then I could see that I had the capacity to write. But the funny thing is most people write are also good readers, but I did everything the other way around. I started to write, then I read later, and that's how I really got to know other writers, and really got to love words actually in general.
I'm really loving this, and I think maybe a Black young girl to studying with white kids. I don't know how did you adjust?
It was challenging. It was very challenging because in my nature, I am an introverted person. So even if I was in Burundi and everybody was speaking in Kirundi or French, I was not the kid who would raise her hand and be like, "Yeah, I have an idea. I know what you are talking about." No, I was not that person. So imagine then you are in an environment where everybody's speaking English and the accent is very different from what you grew up hearing. So people speak very fast. And even in school, you will see other Black kids. And I remember that experience that I had. We were in school. I think we were like only two Black people, maybe three Black kids. And I I call myself a kid, but yeah, I was a kid back then. So you would try to be friends with the black students, basically. But then I remember we were in school, we were in class, and we were debating. I don't know what we were talking about, and we were talking about black Americans and black people from Africa, and then one student, I think she had background from Jamaica, but was born in Canada. So you would consider her a Black American, basically. And she would be like, Africans are different from us. Even if we are all Black, we are different. I was like, oh, even that Black person see me as a different person just because I am straight from Africa. So that's why I was like, you know what? I need to diversify. I don't have to confine myself to finding friends in my skin tone, I would say. I had a good friend who was actually a white girl, who was a good friend for me all the years in university. It was not easy because I had to adapt the language, the culture, the working, but also studying. I did both. I studied, but also I worked part-time, which was very challenging by itself. But it's doable. You need to adjust, and it's possible. It's very hard, but it's possible.
Yeah, I think, as you said, in whatever you want to do, if you want to do this or that, and you say, I'm going to just start writing and let my voice be heard. What inspired you to do that? What did you want to write about? What did you see? Is there something that you saw is not heard from the community, or how did you start doing that?
So I started publishing 5 years ago, I think. Yes, 5 years ago. It was a little bit before COVID. And the only reason it took that long is because I put together my website. So I was the one who had to work on doing the website and then putting it together. So that's why it took long. But basically the reason why I decided to publish my work is because I mentioned that I am a last born, and I always wanted to have younger siblings. So in my mind, I was like, if I had younger siblings, what would I want to tell them? And it was more like, I think it's a little bit similar to what you mentioned when it comes to your reason of doing this podcast. I know that if I was younger, I would have loved to see a blog that talked about certain things that I write about. So it's me more so wanting to, maybe be of hand. I love to be resourceful. So I do it for the younger generations. I do it for my nephews and my nieces because I do have a lot of them and I love them. So it's more for them when they will be at that stage, maybe university, maybe, going through adulthood, that they will know that there are other people who went through that. Because sometimes when we are going through something, we feel like we are alone. We feel like this is very particular about our case. There is nobody else going through this. So it was more so for me to put my life out there, so that if there is anybody that can be of help, that would be helpful to somebody. So that was the reason, and that is the main reason why I publish what I write, because I've been writing for a very long time.
And I can say that your writing is raw, personal, and powerful. Do you ever feel vulnerable sharing such deep reflections?
To be honest, no. No, because most of the time I share things that I have already processed. And I do have editors. I have people that actually edit what I write. And I tell them, does that make sense? Am I not putting myself out there too much? So by the time I publish, I know that I'm not vulnerable. I am sharing, feel comfortable sharing. And it's not all of it, but it's something that I know it will be helpful to somebody, but I don't feel vulnerable. Not really.
What surprised you the most on how people respond to your blog?
You know what? I think I can think about one instances when I wrote the 10 years I had many feedback about that one. I had many feedback and it was very overwhelming. Most of them, they were positive. Actually, all of them, they were very positive. And when you are writing or you do anything, I think you can relate to that. When you put something out there, it's a part of you. So when you see people appreciate it, you appreciate that. So it's one thing. But then when it comes to that particular blog, there were people who would write to me and be like, I was reading this and I cried. A friend who is actually back home, who is in Burundi. I hope she won't mind that I share her story, but she told me about her brother, basically. She was like, one of my siblings live abroad for many years, and most boys don't really, or men don't really talk about the experience. They don't really talk about what has gone bad or how it affected them to live very far away from their family. And then she told me that the day that their mom went to visit her brother, he put on social media and he writes, "I am finally home." Because the mother went to visit him, and that sense of, home being where your loved ones are. So imagine for someone who has been living abroad for maybe 15 years and they have never got the chance to see anybody in their family. But then there is one person who comes and you'll be like, this is home. It finally feels like home. And she was like, I know he's my brother. He never told us about all the challenges that he went through. But reading your blog, it made me realize that, actually, by the time he posted that, our sibling went actually through a lot. And maybe we'll never get a chance to see that. Maybe they will never get a chance to write that, but they could relate. And it's something that I love. When I write, I would love for people to be able to relate. And to be kind to each other, to be kind, because we are all going through something that we don't talk about, that we don't share, And it's something that really struck me when people read my blogs and be like, I can relate. I cried, which is very strange to me. I'm like, how can you cry about this? But it's very profound, and I'm very grateful about that.
What impact do you hope your work in health or development will have on your community? Any impact that you hope, like what I'm doing, I would like just to have an impact on my community or my readers, any impact that you would like to see in the future on your community? What is it?
Oh, that's a good question. I would love to see my community being able to express themselves. I love when people communicate, not just to talk, because Burundians, we're really good at talking. We can talk for hours, but to really talk about real life, basically. It doesn't have to be challenges, but real life. And I would love, but also for people to be able to be, as I mentioned, to be kind to each other. Mm-hmm. When I tell my story, maybe yours, you might be able to grasp some of it and be like, I can relate to this. Mm. So if you can relate to that, it means that you understand that I went through something. Mm-hmm. That could be good or could be bad, and you can relate to me differently. Because most of the time we tend to judge others, or we tend to judge people because we don't know what they are going through. Maybe they will act a certain way and you have no idea what the past is. You have no idea what they are going through right now. So my hope is that by sharing my writings, people will be able to relate to it, but it's also to relate to each other, and hopefully be able to communicate to kuyaga. I love the verb kuyaga. I love people who are able to sit down and talk about real life.
Tell me, if you're a writer, not only maybe people reacting to what you're writing, maybe becoming a voice or an unheard voice, you see, because after you are in the place of someone who's not speaking, you see, which is good, by the way. Do you writers get something like money out of it? Because someone who is watching this, listening to this may say, okay, yes, I will help, is true, but I can just call it a profession because I will have a family, I'll have kids, I'm sending them to school. How do you view that?
I can talk about my own experience. I don't write for money. It's not my job. It doesn't pay me. I actually have to put my own money to be able to have a blog, for example. Eventually, for someone who would like to be a writer, obviously they can make money out of it. I don't have that experience yet. I know that there are many people who are encouraging me to write books, but I'm not there yet. But I believe that I don't know in our community how it is for writers. I would love to see someone who has been successful just by writing. But I know that we have many writers in our community. We have many writers in Burundi. We have many really good books. Those already there, but also just new ones. I feel like maybe even last year we had so many people who wrote books. Yeah, and also it can happen that you will have like a gig. That's how we call it. Maybe a gig, not something that you would do full time. You will have people who would ask you to write something, to translate something, to proofread as well. So yeah. But when it comes to a full-time job, when it comes to writing, I'm not there yet, and I don't know if there is anybody, like at least in our community, who's living off writing.
In your writing, you wrote Carnet d'un retour au pays natal, and you describe going back to Burundi. What was the experience like after years away?
So I went back to Burundi after 7 years. So you can imagine, I left Burundi when I was still a teenager. I'm coming back to Burundi and I'm getting married. So I am a full adult, you know. I did all my adulthood in Canada, and then I'm back in Burundi. So then me being there, like living there, was a different experience, which was actually very beautiful. You know, I always tell people that the fact that I had to, because I also got a chance to work in Burundi. It's a long story. Maybe people can go and read Carnet d'un retour au pays natal. But the plan was not to stay in Burundi. But then I got to stay in Burundi for 2 years. And one thing that I really loved was working with Burundians and speaking Kirundi the whole day. I don't know how to explain it to somebody who, you know, when you have been speaking in English for 7 years, the entire day, you go home and you are very tired. But then you go back home and all your coworkers are speaking in Kirundi. You have meetings in Kirundi. I feel like it did something really, really good on my mental health. I felt like, oh, now I can breathe. You know, it's something that I really appreciated. The little things, even waking up in the morning and hearing birds singing those are little things that, you know, when you having that for your entire life, you don't really appreciate. But I used to live in Toronto, and in Toronto we don't have birds, we don't have trees. You know, you wouldn't experience something like that, or even seeing stars in the sky. So those are the little things. But also living with Burundians, you know, how do you call it? When Burundians are talking, we have Irakoze. So sometimes it would take time for me to adjust, you know. When someone is saying something, knowing that was not literal, they wanted to say something else, but they say this. Sometimes I will miss it, to be honest. I missed it sometimes. Maybe it would just be a quiproquo. But I think I adjusted very quickly. And most people will be like, are you sure you're coming from Canada? Because when I'm speaking with Burundians, I don't like switching languages. I don't like going back from Kirundi to French or to English. I try my best to speak one language. And, you know, some people will be like, how come you're only speaking Kirundi? How long have you been living abroad? But I was like, yeah, I love my language. But also, it was really good. It was a great experience. I think it was something that really I would cherish for the rest of my life. It was a great experience.
I'm really loving this. And you people who are abroad, what do you like us to be sharing with you so that just can help you stay connected to Burundi?
I think you mentioned something about going in rural areas. I think that is something that we really appreciate, because when it comes to the city, I feel like most people, we know what's going on. We have friends who take pictures of whatever that's going on in the city. But when it comes to the rural areas, going to Rumonge, as you mentioned, going to Gitega, going to Batana, and seeing what the everyday Burundian does on a typical day, the students, what did they do on a typical day? How did they go back home when it comes to studying? Those little things, going back maybe to church. What is their social life? What really makes them happy? What are their hobbies? Because they do have them as well. So I think seeing those things that are not very mainstream when it comes to rural areas is something that we really appreciate.
In my 20s and whatever, what would like just to tell them to become a writer?
For someone who is in their 20s?
Yeah, their 20s.
I would say read a lot. Read a lot. If you want to be a writer, read a lot. Learn to be by yourself, because when you are young, you tend to like to be in company with many people. Try to be by yourself, and it takes time. It doesn't really happen overnight. I told you that I've been writing since I was 12 or 11 years. You don't get good the first time, and don't be afraid to ask for I would say for constructive criticism. When you have been writing and keep it for yourself, you can be afraid to share that with anybody, because you will be sharing a part of you. So I would say, don't be afraid to put your work out there. Share it with people that you trust, that you know they have your best interest at heart. Because it happened to me when I would share my writing with someone who doesn't know me, who doesn't know my background, and they would just criticize and don't really give you any constructive criticism. And that's not what you want, because it will either make you write better, or it just push you somewhere where you'll be like, I am bad at this, I will never try again. So I would say, share your writings with trusted people, but keep writing and keep reading, and try to be by yourself as much as you can.
What message would you give to other Burundians, especially young women who feel unseen or unheard in the world?
Okay. So first, I will tell them it's a feeling when people meet you. You would like to feel heard and seen, but I can promise you that there is at least one person who is happy to see you when you go out of your house. Maybe the little kid to whom you say hi, maybe the person who works in that boutique and who see you like just walking around. So there's definitely someone who can see you and who can hear you. And I will also say, sometimes when we are young, we will try to do things to be seen, and you will try to post things that are not necessarily helpful for you to be seen, because you are already beautiful, you are already smart, but I would love young women to know that they are more than their physics. We are more than our beauty. We are more than our body. We are our kindness. We are our softness. We are our brain. We are smart. We are all of that can be helpful to the society, and that doesn't have to be physical. So you don't have to go out there, maybe on TikTok or whatever. I don't have anything against those platforms, but I would say you don't have to be a public figure to be seen or heard. Basically, we don't have to be an influencer to be seen or heard. What I mean is, you can be seen at home. You can be seen at work. You can be seen at church. You can be impactful everywhere you are, and that doesn't have to be on public platforms. That's what I wanted to say.
Pleasing influencer.
For me, an influencer is someone who has a good influence to other people. So it means by their the way of doing life, the way they are honest, the way they are. When I speak to you, for example, when you speak to me, and I would say, Alex is actually a good communicator. Alex is actually on time. They actually started the meeting on time. That is of influence to me. It's the little things. You don't have to be a public figure to be an influencer. No, for me, it's the little things. It is your honesty. It is your ethics when it comes to work or everyday life. It is your kindness toward other people. So that for me is what makes influence. I think the most influential people in our lives are the people who are close to us, not the people that we see on the screen.
Is there anything that you would like to write that you have not yet written yet? Maybe you would like to start exploring in the future?
I would love to write about my faith. It's something that I have not. I incorporate it sometimes, but sometimes I feel like I would love to write more about it in the future. Because it's a very huge component of my life. It's part of my life. And I believe I can say it boldly that it made me the person that I am today. So I would love to talk about my journey with God, with Jesus Christ. I would love to talk about my faith a little bit more, maybe be more intentional when it comes to sharing that.
Is there anything you miss back in Burundi? Maybe an area, maybe a place, maybe, I don't know, maybe talking to people, maybe food, I don't know, anything that you miss back in Burundi?
Oh, I miss a lot of things. I miss many things. I miss my family. I do have family back home. I miss my friends. But also when it comes to places, I miss the beach. I miss the Lake Tanganyika. I miss food. Most of the food we can find here, but they don't taste as good as in Burundi. So I would say I miss amateka Kirundi. Amafsiru, absolutely. I miss that. When you put a little bit of salt on it, it's really good. I miss umukeke, obviously, isombe. But we can find that. We can find isombe, not umukeke. We can find isombe, but they don't taste as good as home.
Probably this is the start. Maybe tomorrow, after tomorrow, we can call you again and honor us again to be part of this journey. Thank you so much, Carnet.
Thank you so much, Alex. It was nice talking with you. I really loved this conversation, and thank you for having me.
Okay, it has been a pleasure. See you, Carnet.